This year what we've done is something slightly different. We went out to the Union Square Farmers Market, and we went to talk to some of the people on the streets, and we wanted to see these customers who were going into a farmer's market, with one exception who we kind of stopped on the way. We wanted to ask them some questions and see if some of these questions couldn't serve as a sort of leaping off point for some of our discussions today. So could we play those videos? The first one. Now, the thing to remember, of course, about these is that these were people who were going into a farmer's market, so it's not in any way intended to be a representative sample of the United States or even New York. These were particular people. You would get very different answers because we've done similar work if you were out in Omaha or even in New Jersey talking to people. But this is a portion of the industry too, and clientele, and we thought we'd start here. You can go ahead.
Farmer's market. It should be truly fresh, and if they tell you there's no pesticides, you hope that's correct. Grocery stores, you never have any idea.
It's going from the farm straight to the truck and then to my home, as opposed to the truck, the supermarket, other hand, and then to my home.
I'm leaning towards produce market.
I don't know if I feel like it's any safer than retail necessarily, but maybe, because the people I assume that are selling it to me are the people that have grown it, so they're like standing behind it.
I prefer to buy produce at the farmer's market because when you go to the same market again and again and the same stands, you feel like you have a relationship with the people who are growing the food.
Okay. What I'm going to ask everyone to, we think a little bit about those subjects. I'm going to go down the panel, and I'm going to ask everyone to introduce themselves and tell people what you do here and explain your background in the industry. And we have a pretty diverse group representing a lot of different places and things, so it's worth listening to these stories. GUALBERTO, why don't you start us off?
Great. So good morning. I'm GUALBERTO Rodriguez I'm president of Caribbean Produce Exchange in San Juan, Puerto Rico. We're a 55-year-old third generation fresh produce distributor on the island.
Okay, Derrick?
Hello, I'm Derrick Jenkins, Vice President of Produce and Floral for Wakefern Food Corporation, 33 years.
Anthony Sattler, Vice President of Produce and Floral for CNS Wholesale Grocers. I've been with CNS for 19 years now. And I thank the board. Thank you.
I'm Eric Stone. I'm the VP of Fresh at Fresh Direct. We've been around for 15 years, an online grocer. I've been there for 8. So,
Paul.
Good morning. Paul Kneeland, Vice President, Fresh Merchandising for Ahold Fresh Formats, and I've been there for 6 months.
Hi, Greg Veneziano, Vice President of Perishables at Bozzutos in Connecticut. I grew up in grocery stores, family-owned supermarkets, so a long time in the produce industry.
Johan.
Good morning. I'm Johan DIQUE. I'm all the way from Cape Town in South Africa. I work for a company called Capespan. We've got fruit marketing companies all over the globe. And I find this a very good learning experience. I visited this on invitation, and I gave a short talk on disruptive forces in business, and I hope somebody learned something from it. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Tim York. I'm with Markon Cooperative. We're based in Salinas, California. We provide produce to the food service market.
Jay Schneider, Produce Director for Acme Markets, 32 years.
SAVANELLO, I'm the Director of Produce and Floral for Allegiance Retail Services, based out of Islin, New Jersey. I've been in the supermarket and produce industry for over 35 years.
Mark Goldman, I'm the Produce Director for Morton Williams Supermarkets.
I've been in the produce industry for over 37 years.
John VASAPOLI, Director of Perishables for D'Agostino Supermarkets in New York City. I've been with them for 44 years and in the produce end of it for 32 years.
Thank you all very much. I should mention for the many local retailers here, a special thank you. As many of you know, one of the largest retailers in this region recently went bankrupt and in fact is liquidating their stores. So many of these gentlemen who are here are really in the midst of adopting and integrating new stores that they just wound up acquiring. So it really took special effort to come away and join us today. So thank you very much. All right, so we were talking about food safety, and we were talking about the perception of some consumers, at least, that somehow produce is going to be much safer if it's from a local farmer's market. Tim, you've been very involved. You've been really at the forefront of some of the food safety efforts that PMA has done and the Center for Produce Quality. What do you think when you hear something like that?
Well, with a lot of things with consumers, we can, if you will, sit on our high horse and say, you know, they're poor, ignorant consumer. We just have to tell our story better and get them straightened out. And the reality is, we can't tell our story, and we really shouldn't expect that consumers really know the difference. You know, most of us in this room know you're talking about the size of the problem and not a risk profile one versus another. You know, recently read something that John Tester wrote, he of the amendment that makes the exemption for small growers. And he's an organic grower himself and throws rocks, if you will, at conventional agriculture. And so I think we've got to be very careful about our messaging and about trying to straighten out consumers that at the same time, while they believe it's safer, let them believe that. Why are they there at a farmer's market? I would suggest that for many people, what we call local would be proxy really for fresh and crisp and taste. And so I think it's incumbent on us that are in the industry to figure out how do we deliver that flavor, texture, experience from wherever we ship that product from.
Mark, you have a lot of urban stores, so these are kind of your customers potentially. Why do you think they go to the farmer's market? And do you find that they also go to your stores, or is it a choice, or is it an addition? How does it work?
It's both. I think the perception is that it's fresher at the farmer's market because it's coming direct from the farm. I don't know if that's always the case. As far as food safety, in the summertime they're selling stuff outside 90 degrees. And we have everything refrigerated. It's just a perspective. It's a way of looking at things.
Let's turn this off. Ken? John, what about you? You also have a lot of stores that would be in kind of vicinity of these farmers market, urban farmers markets.
Well, I agree with Mark. I believe the customers, they think the product is fresher because it comes from the farmers markets. And that's okay. Let them believe that. We just have to make sure as a retailer that we do everything in our power to make sure that everything is fresh. We offer traceability. We offer guarantees of product. These are things I don't think you get on the street. We follow the cold chain and make sure that product is maintained at proper temperatures. And I just think the consumer doesn't realize everything that we do in a retail store.
Well, I will share with you some research that has been done to this point. If you actually take produce and go buy it at farmers markets, and you actually go to supermarkets and buy similar items, and then you actually do taste tests with consumers and ask them to evaluate crispness and things like this, supermarket produce almost always wins those comparisons, mostly because of the failure to maintain the cold chain. And you know, it's fine. This is actually one of the best farmers markets because the volume is so high at Union Square. One of the things that's happened, there's been an explosion of farmers markets throughout the country, but what they've actually done is weaken the biggest selling farmers markets because they draw from them, and it's led to a slowing of turnover. So consumer perceptions on this issue may not always be in alignment with what actually happens, but it's an area. Let's go to the next question, if we could. What concerns you about the way fresh produce is sold at local stores? Just ask sort of an open-ended question. Go ahead.
I think they try too hard to make them all look the same. And I worry that ends up being too much waste in the end.
They package everything rather than being loose.
Mass-produced, and it's probably picked too soon.
It may not be reliably labeled as to origin, age.
I've tried to get them to stop using styrofoam and not give bags so freely, so packaging.
I think it's selected for its looks instead of its nutrition.
The fact that the color you see is not actually the color it is, it's been enhanced with whatever they spray it with so you don't really know how ripe it is until you take it home and try to cut it.
It's trucked all over the place or flown from South America. I'm really not into it, even if it's organic. I'd rather eat local and non-organic than organic from halfway around the planet.
You know, Derrick, you are a very big powerhouse of buying from all over the world. And how do you react to the consumer who's saying something like local is the most important thing to them and that they'd rather have local than organic or anything else? How does a group like Wakefern deal with that and your retailers?
Yeah. We understand the consumer's preference. We agree with that. We think local is very important, and it's basically in our DNA at ShopRite and Wakefern, because our family member stores and service the community, and they deal with local farmers on a daily basis. So we think it's very important. The local movement's important. It's bigger than organics. It's bigger than club, and it resonates with the consumer. So we try to connect to that mindset.
Paul, you know, the Be Fresh concept has been out on the streets doing some interviewing too, up in Allston, Massachusetts, where you opened your first store. They had some funny videos. People said not only did they want the product to be local, they wanted the store to be really local. One guy said, like, there, across the street, so I can go out of bed without pants and come and buy produce. What does local mean to these consumers, and how are these type of small format stores that you're looking to do serving that need?
It's interesting because we don't require pants if you do want to shop our stores. But local is really getting more defined. As retailers in my past lives, you're looking at a wide region because you want to have the most what's in that local region. You want to not have less, so you widen the region when you call it local. So now I think there's a big change. I think just like the Union Market, farmers market, that's local to them. People that go to that think that that produce is grown right around the corner, somewhere close by. Local is becoming much more closer. In Massachusetts, in the store in Massachusetts, local is defined as Massachusetts grown. It does pinpoint us a little bit, but that's what it is. In Connecticut store, same thing. Philadelphia store, same thing. It's getting a lot more tighter, and with our concept and strategy going into neighborhoods, that's going to be much more important to the consumers. And really, the court of public opinion, the right, wrong, or indifferent, what they think, that's what they think. So really, you gotta learn from that and really communicate to the consumers what you're all about.
Well, Greg, let me ask you this. You know, obviously, some things can be hyper-local, just in state or You know, they do some products, they want to build it on the roof of the store or things like this. But there are some products that are never going to be that kind of local. And some groups with, I think, some success, like California avocados, for example, have tried to position their product as the local alternative because they are in America. How do you interplay something like local when there are so many products that can never be local?
Well, you can really get those at the farmer's market, like the guys were saying here, because bananas at a farmer's market, we know that's impossible, but people go to the farmer's market thinking that's where they actually get them grown there. So, but we service states, 11 different states, so we have different local products for different stores. We have to get those from those states, and like Paul said, that mostly local is getting more defined. So going for a national product like an avocado is a little bit more difficult. People know they can't grow those here, so they understand it. And I think that works out well for us. So.
Okay, very good. Let's do the next video, please. If a store sells something that is marketed as local, what does that mean to you?
I don't know. I don't know what the rules are, but local should be with, I don't know, within the state, I guess.
I think within the region.
I would assume the surrounding New York area.
I would say it's New Jersey, upstate New York. I would call that local.
Most likely it's grown somewhere within 5 miles, 5 to 10 miles of where I live.
Hopefully within 25 miles. That's what in Virginia, that's what it is. That's pretty standard. But sometimes it's not. If you look at the boxes, sometimes Virginia apples are one of the largest crops, and sometimes they'll be from Washington State.
New York stores, they have local New York apples, not coming from Peru or Europe or somewhere else, wherever they make apples. Anyway.
I don't know that there's a definition of local. Any of the markets that I shop at around here, which are good quality markets, there's never a defined radius for what local means, so I don't know.
Vic, do your consumers think it's within 5 miles of their store, or what do they think?
I think if you asked 100 of my customers that question, I think they'd give you 95 different answers. That would be my answer to that. I think people feel like anything that's local is something from what we would call local, the tri-state area, within a reasonable ride to the store where they're shopping at, something that doesn't spend as much time as conventional product coming from the West Coast or coming from Mexico, or it's not clearly defined. So, to ask that question of any consumer, I think you're going to get many different answers.
How specific are they, Jay? For example, and now you're spreading out a bit, so you have more of a question. Is a New York apple local in Philadelphia, or does it have to be a Pennsylvania apple? What's
it's an interesting question. We've always tried to cater to, we're a Philadelphia-based market, obviously, and before we had stores up in North Jersey, which was in, we would always carry both and accept that as local. I think, but you will get a customer that knows, so-and-so farms that's 5 miles up the road that has one little apple orchard. Well, how come you can't take apples from this guy or that guy? And sometimes when you're dealing with large, it's hard to manage that. It's hard to manage a bunch of small growers, store-to product to support it, because for us, they have to be all CAP certified. And I don't think customers any local person that's kind of up the street type, but it's hard to manage. Regional piece.
I'm going to repeat your answer because we seem to have a little audio problem with you. The gentleman's coming behind you.
I'm sorry.
Fix your mic. You want to say it again? No,
Okay. So we do cater to both New York and PA apple. We've always done that regionally since where our stores are at. But like I said, customers have the perception that we get inquiries about, hey, there's an apple orchard 5 miles from your store. Why don't you carry those apples? And it's tough to manage that for a large chain, to manage a pocket of 15, 20, 30 small growers to go to the stores, because a lot of them, are not GAP certified. They don't know how to get GAP certified. Retailers put themselves at risk. When you start dealing with little growers, even that customers want, that are not GAP certified. I mean, we are that close to something happening to our stores that can be devastating, and I take that very serious, and it happens.
Well, Anthony, if he thinks he has problems with supplying lots of different things to lots of different people, you have a much bigger problem in that area. How do you reconcile this desire for all these local things? And he says, even a farmer with 5 acres down the block, and your food safety standards, sustainability standards, traceability standards, and then maybe some retailers who just decide that they can get it cheaper on their own.
I mean, we cater to, the large 1,000-acre farmer to, the 100-acre farmer, local. We have inspectors on the ground at the different growing areas. We follow that supply chain and cold chain all the way through. We have a very tight inspection process at our warehouses, and it's about follow through. And as far as local goes in the stores, perception is reality, and it's about telling your story. It's about communicating and enhancing the experience at store level. So,
Johan, you hear this kind of conversation. Now, you're based in South Africa. The business was born with the idea of shipping fruit from South Africa very far away to every place else in the world. Later on, you've started, of course, buying produce from Chile and Peru and other places. How does this movement, this whole local movement, resonate with you and your strategic planning? Is it significant? Is it just a little marketing that makes things exciting? Is it a threat? What do you think about it?
Yes, interesting question. Obviously, we compete in the developed part of economy, first world economies, from a number of developing areas. I mean, all the questions that we've considered here has got probably a different perspective depending on which part of the world you're in. If you look at parts of the world where 70, 80% of total fresh is consumed from in-markets, farmer markets, as we've described, and the formal sector is really just the top end, then that question gets a different perspective. We obviously compete in that top end, and all the quality issues, all the health issues, all the freshness issues are applicable to that sector. So whether you're procuring fruit from Africa or South America or China or India, wherever, and supplying into those markets, you're sitting with the same question. Now, obviously, we cannot answer the question on local because we're not local relative to that market, which makes it a little bit more different.
Okay. And Gualberto, to give an opposite perspective almost, we're talking about in this area, obviously the tropical products and things are not local. Truth is, very little produce in Puerto Rico is local. How does a Puerto Rican consumer think about issues like this, or do they at all?
Absolutely. It's very important, and it has a different twist these days. As Johan says, it's the specific way in which the Puerto Rico consumer feels about local has a twist of, I think, for example, economically, what am I doing with my spending to leave the money here? Is this the kind of product that I can help my economy by leaving the money around? So there's an interest in consumers that retailers are responding to and saying, your spend can help support the economy. So there's that element as well. And I think a common thread too is the issue of relationship and care. Can I connect with the story of the human story behind this product? Can I relate? And yesterday we heard of several, the company Cool Fresh, for example, told us about telling that story so that if it cannot be local, then give me a story that I can care about, that I can connect with on a human level. And that seems to also resonate very well with non-local products. But those are the drivers in Puerto Rico with local.
In other words, when people prefer local, there's often reasons that they prefer local, true or not, what they think they're getting, and there's a story behind that, and sometimes there's other stories that can be told. Eric, let me ask you, how effective is the web as a tool for telling those kind of stories? Is the industry as a whole, do they need to worry that we're not going to have the ability to drive impulse sales and things like that because we can't be as effective marketers online as in store, or is it the opposite?
Yeah, again, I mean, people really want to know where their food comes from, right? So who grows it, where it's grown, how it's grown. And with our various media channels, we have our blog, and we really can call out all the different locations of where the product is grown. And people can make these decisions and choices online. And to the earlier point, we can really tell a story. So there's a captive audience where people are reading, and we think we can get the point across really well and drive impulse purchase.
Okay, let's go to the next video. Why would you buy frozen or canned fresh? This is actually an interesting issue, particularly for those of us. Derrick has been very involved in trying to increase consumption. What are we actually trying to do? The Produce for Better Health Foundation, because they get a lot of government support, they're required as part of their mandate to accept canned, frozen, 100% juice products as part of what they're trying to increase consumption of. Many produce industry organizations don't follow that path because sometimes they're totally separate industries. So, you know, fresh broccoli may come predominantly from California, some from Maine, a few other places, whereas frozen broccoli may come probably very close to 100% from Mexico or China. So the question of how the industry is going to engage with other formats of produce is going to be a growing and important issue as we consider ways of increasing consumption. Let's hear what people had to say.
I buy frozen sometimes because it's convenient and it's more affordable.
To my understanding is that they are flash frozen pretty much within so many hours of being picked, so the nutrients are still in there.
Just it's easier maybe to prep, you know, it's like some of it's already cut.
Sometimes I buy canned vegetables over fresh so that I can prepare the meal quickly.
Either I didn't have enough money, or I needed something that was going to last for a long time, like I was going on a sailing trip and I would bring some sort of canned food with me.
Sometimes I'll buy frozen peas because they're already shelled. And then if the recipe calls for frozen peas, it just seems totally simple. You just open the box and dump it in.
Derrick, when you're thinking about fresh frozen ideas in your stores, are our competitors just the snack food aisle, or are we actually in competition with our own products in different formats?
We're in competition with everyone in the aisle because the consumer has $100 to spend, and they're going to spend it the way they have to spend it to feed their families. So there's times of the month where they have to have the food last longer, and they'll buy grocery and frozen those times. But we want to grow consumption in fresh produce for health reasons and for sustainability reasons, so that's what we try to do.
Mm-hmm. I've read things that say that people who are very big on things like juicing now often will have frozen blueberries and frozen fruits. What's the best strategies, you think, to drive some of this purchase into the fresh arena?
I think it's about telling our story and about connecting with our growers and shippers, and letting them tell their stories, and let the consumers really see that how it's grown. Some of the videos that were shown today about the farms, that connects to the consumer's mind. And they see how it's grown fresh, how it comes in transit, and how we tell our story, how we distribute it to them. Tells a story.
Tim, you know, restaurants, we always get pictures of these beautiful white tablecloth restaurants who are visiting each farmer to select the tomato and going to the farmers markets. But, you know, that's really just like 1% of the restaurant business. There's a lot of frozen and canned products that are used in every type of restaurant across America. What kind of initiatives might draw those restaurants into doing more in the fresh arena and a little less with canned or frozen product?
Well, I think one of the consumers addressed partially why people are buying canned is almost gone away, but why people are buying frozen is because of the convenience. Most of us don't shuck peas, buy English peas, and then shuck them at home. We buy a frozen bag of peas, and that's what we find commonly in the food service as well. When if they're really looking at serving cost and ease of preparation, they're using fresh. If they're looking for enhanced flavor, texture, that story they can tell about the product itself, they're moving towards a fresh product.
Okay, let's go to the next video. What advice would you give to fresh produce managers at your local supermarkets?
A lot. Maybe have some recipe cards nearby as to what I can do with the produce.
Just got to buy local. More produce supports the farmers. It's better for the planet.
I'd really appreciate it if they didn't overpackage everything, like little bits of, you know, sometimes you're stuck and you need sage or something, and there's this little bit of sage on a piece of styrofoam with plastic.
They should buy more ugly vegetables. Those are the good ones. The ones that aren't, they haven't been bred to be sold in a store and all look the same.
More local, more natural, tell you what you're really getting. Even if you have to pay a little bit more, you're better off.
Paul, what do you think about this issue of packaging in stores? There has been an increase in the produce industry, more clamshells and things like that as time has gone by. Is there real pushback from consumers on something like that, or what do you think?
There really isn't. I think that it really depends on the product. Tim said it, you know, people aren't going to shell their own English peas. They're looking for an alternative. They're looking for convenience. They're looking to make it easy. So you've got to look at it as kind of a balance when you look at produce departments. And then the things that you do have to package, take advantage of that also. Eric mentioned it. Tell the story. Use the package, use the label to tell the story. Talk about the freshness, talk about the locality, talk about how good it is, what nutritional value, how to cook it, put a recipe on it. But I really think the evolution is actually history is going to repeat itself, right? So there's going to be a lot more packaging I see in produce departments. Fresh looks great, loose looks great, and it displays nice, but watch what customers are going after. Watch what happens in the frozen aisles when you look at the organic vegetables and the organic fruits and the frozen fruits, as Eric mentioned. So watch what happens.
What do you think, Eric? Is this going to be an issue for delivery services? I mean, by definition, almost everything's got to be packaged in some way. You can't just dump raw produce. Is that going to be an issue with especially younger consumers, very environmentally conscious?
Sure. And we see, we have you know, a CSA box where we have minimal packaging, and people really look to that, and they enjoy it, and they enjoy the experience of when they open the box. And we hear the feedback from them. And we hear some negative feedback on the amount of boxes that we have, and we work really, really hard on our efficiencies and making sure we're reducing our amount of boxes, and it's definitely something to think about as we go forward and reducing the amount of packaging.
Greg, you know, you had the opportunity as you rose up, you worked in store, you were a store manager, you did all this. Do you think the produce industry, the shippers and producers, are they in tune with consumers in the way you had that experience to really work one-on-one with consumers? Or are these decisions being made kind of apart from consumer input?
No, I think they get information from consumers. When strawberries used to always come in pint containers, loose, never thought strawberries would ever sell in a clamshell. Now it's one of your top items. Grapes the same way. Grapes were always loose. Now they're in bags. So I think that they're getting feedback from the consumers, and a lot of our better retailers are going after the vendors, the packers and growers, and suggesting what to do with them. I mean, designing different products for those, what they want to sell in their stores, different sizes. It's great for traceability-wise, food safety, and also for scanning-wise at the registers. A lot less errors.
Anthony, a lot of people may not have resources themselves. Someone made a reference to having recipe cards, things of that sort. What kind of tools do you give the retailers who are buying from you to help them to increase demand?
We send out a weekly communicator to all of our independent retailers. We try to tell a story, what's coming into season, going out of season. I mean, we just saw the strawberry gap, you know, $60 strawberries out there in the terminal market. So we try to stay ahead of that and educate especially our independent retailers that, you know, may not have the means to get that sort of knowledge and information. And, you know, we try to help them tell the story at store level.
Derrick, how you've been very involved with the Eat Brighter program and PMA's effort to promote consumption. When consumers come into a store and they see product that is now being sold under the Eat Brighter banner, do they understand that? What do they take from that? Is it move consumption?
I think we're still in the early stages of the journey, and we're still trying to find our legs. But down the road, the goal is about creating consumption for the young children, ages 2 to 7 years old. That's what Eat Brighter is first, so we get their palates used to eating produce and get them wanting to buy it, use the characters to leverage that to buy the produce. Then we get them to be produce customers. That's the goal of Eat Brighter.
Is this like a special enhancement that you're looking for, like when you're considering procuring someone who can bring you this? That's a helpful thing because it's in line with what you're trying to do?
It's a helpful thing. It helps. Yes, it helps.
And what about, are all products really going to be suitable to do this? Like you talk about young children, we think about grapes and oranges. I mean, if I came to you with a package, we have great arugula in our Eat Brighter package. Is that something that's useful or is that not?
I think it's useful. I think you start with those type of things. I think the vegetables are the challenge for the children. So we can make it convenient and use the sesame characters on those vegetable items like carrots, celery, broccoli, educate them in that regard, get them starting in that path. It's going to be beneficial down the road.
And you know, one of the segues for people to enjoy these products sometimes are things that Produce with Better Health can't do. For example, they're not allowed to promote, say, broccoli with cheese because of things. But many people would argue that getting the kids to eat broccoli is the key thing, and you know, we'll worry about the cheese later.
Yes.
Do you do that kind of cross-merchandising and things to try and make those types of things happen?
Yes, we do. We also really connect with our culinary department as far as food service and ShopRite kitchens and tie that in also to a whole eating experience, and that's what we try to do.
Mark, you know, you have a very sophisticated clientele. They have the best restaurants in the world in the same streets where your stores are on. Is there an ability to kind of close the gap between the experiences that people get in fine restaurants in New York City and what their expectations are in terms of the produce you're going to offer?
Well, we also have very extensive salad bars in our store with hot food. So we have people coming in and eating as if it was a restaurant also. Produce is for packaged items, we sell more and more all the time. In Manhattan, it's all about grab and go. We cut up broccoli, we cut up cauliflower, package it ourselves, and we sell it. Butternut squash. Items that you never sold like that before, we sell a lot because we package it.
Right, and we're going to close up because we have to get on to the expo, and we're hoping you'll all join us on a march down to Trade Show Floor. But I'd like to ask Vic, as EPC president, just close us up. What do you see as the best way for the produce industry to work to boost consumption of fruits and vegetables in the years ahead?
Well, I agree 100% with identifying ways to promote fresh produce, as like Derrick said, primarily vegetables. I mean, I think fruit is easy to children. I mean, that's absolutely the best way to increase consumption. I think there's such a tremendous opportunity there as far as doing volume, more volume, by getting children. And also, you know, when you're talking about Mark's and John's stores, you know, that are in Manhattan, you know, they've got around them these restaurants that are making all these different offerings. And if we could tap into that, if we could pay attention to that, and offer to the consumer the ability to emulate what they just ate in that restaurant on Friday night in their kitchen on Monday, you know, whether it's cross-merchandising a cheese with their apple or their pear, or wine, you know, that goes along with it, if that's an opportunity for you in your stores. I mean, that's another way for us to be able to drive consumption.
All right. Well, we have almost 400 exhibitors on the floor, each one of which is convinced that they have the answer to how you should drive consumption. So I want to say thank you very much to our panel today.